Alright guys, today we're going to look at the notes for SOL 9A. That's the title there in the parentheses in the upper right hand corner. So when you title your notes, just put SOL 9A. I had a separate section of notes typed up that had 9A on a title slide, but unfortunately I don't have access to them right now. So just make sure you title this SOL 9A for your notebook. And what we are going to look at in this section is how the media, which is TV and radio and internet and magazines and all those types of things, how they influence what's called public agenda. And all public agenda is, in our case, it means how the media can impact the laws that we have. We talked about how laws are made in SOL 6, 7, and 8. We talked about how local laws are made and state laws are made and national laws are made. So what we're going to look at here is what TV and the internet and like I said, newspapers, what all they do to impact the laws that we have that are made in, at all those three levels. We'll look more at the media, and some of the stuff that we look at today will be reviewed when we get into SOL 5 here in about a week. And then we're going to tie this into what individuals and interest groups can do and how they impact the laws in 9B when we get to that later this week. So what we're going to look at today again is just what TV and internet and those types of sources, which is the media, what all they can do to impact, again, the laws that we have in the United States. So the first thing that the media can do is they focus attention on selected issues. When things happen, regardless of what level, we'll focus on the national level. When things happen at the national level that the media feels is important, they will focus the attention of the American people on those particular topics and those particular issues. And what the media hopes to do is by focusing our attention on what they think's important, we will also feel that it's important, and therefore the people can demand some type of change, some type of law. An example of that would be in today's time, the big issue we seem to have right now in the United States is gun rights and gun laws. So a lot of the media will focus the attention of the American people on gun rights. Some media will focus on why guns need to be limited. Some will focus on how we have rights according to the Constitution to own guns, and they'll try to play that into whichever side they support. If the media supports gun owners, then they'll focus on why the issue isn't the gun, but the people who have the guns. If the news channel is anti-gun, they'll focus on why the gun is the problem. And we'll look a little bit more at that. There'll be a key word here in just a second that kind of goes over which side the media would play on that issue. But again, the media will focus our attention on what they think is important. Like I said, gun issues is one of the important issues. Climate change and things like that is another key topic the media focuses on today. The next thing the media can do is they can offer a forum in which opposing viewpoints are communicated. What this means is a lot of times the media will offer a way for people of both sides, regardless of which side you agree with, they'll allow a way for people to communicate with one another and sometimes share opposing viewpoints. To me, the best example of this, and it's not a great example, but it's an example that shows how people can communicate their views, would be to look at something like the comments that get left on Facebook. When a news outlet, let's say it's Fox News or CNN, when they post the news on Facebook, there's always the comment section. And here people will comment and discuss back and forth on why they agree or disagree with whatever CNN or Fox News may post about the issue. So they usually offer a forum. Sometimes you'll see on the news channels will have several people sitting around a desk, and they'll debate and argue and discuss back and forth on why one person's right, another person's wrong, but they will share both viewpoints, and then hopefully the people watching can make up their own mind or opinion about what they hear. Next thing the media can do is they can hold our government officials accountable to the public. Anytime our leaders are doing something right or wrong, the media will let us know what they think. If Donald Trump does something wrong, there'll be news channels and media that will let us know, hey, Donald Trump did this wrong. Or if he does things right, the people that support Trump will let us know when he does things that are right. Same thing happened when President Obama was in the White House. Anytime he did things right or wrong, our news outlets would hold our government officials accountable. And again, this is how we find out information. We find out information from the media or the press. Again, we learned about the freedom of the press in SOL 3. A lot of the media ties in with freedom of the press. And then at the bottom it says the government officials can use the media to communicate with the public. The main way that our leaders communicate with us, the voters and the public, is through the media. They go on the news. They use social media. Again, President Trump, he's constantly sending out messages through Twitter and using social media. It's how they communicate with the public. Typically, it's through TV. Our government leaders will go on TV and they'll give a speech or share something that they want a lot of people to hear. And the best way to do that is by using the media. One of the first presidents we had that really used the media was President Roosevelt, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. During the Great Depression, he began to host what he called fireside chats, where he would go on radio and he would talk to the American people through radio. And ever since then, our leaders are using the media to communicate with us. It's how we know sometimes what they plan on doing. If there's a crisis, they'll let us know how they plan to fix it. If there's something that they want the American people to know, the easiest and the fastest way to do that is to use the media. Okay, next, strategies for evaluating the media. We will see this slide again, or something very similar to this, when we get to SOL 5 and start looking at politics. What this is going to talk about is what do we, as people who watch TV or read newspapers or magazines or see things on the internet, what do we have to do to decide if the information that we are given is good information or not? Not all the information we see is good. First thing we have to do is separate fact from opinion. We've seen this on some worksheets already in the past, where when you are getting information, you have to decide, is that factual information or is it just someone's opinion? A fact can be proven. You can look it up and prove that it's true. An opinion is just what someone thinks. A lot of our media can sort of tell us things that contain facts, but they also kind of contain some opinions as well. Again, just to make sure we understand what a fact is, Donald Trump is the 45th president. That's a fact. You can look it up and prove it. Donald Trump is a good or bad president. That's an opinion. And as we get into SOL 5 and start looking at things for campaigns, we will look at how the media can sometimes take factual information and really kind of make it look what this next thing says and show bias. Our media is very biased that we have today. Again, once we get into politics, we'll show why we haven't covered the differences in Democrats and Republicans and things like that. But we will in SOL 5, and like I said, we'll look at this slide again in SOL 5. But a lot of our news channels are biased. They show favoritism. Certain channels favor the Republican side, certain channels favor the Democrat side, and they'll present information in a way that supports their political agenda. Like I said, we haven't discussed politics yet, so when we do, we'll kind of explain this a little bit more. But they do show bias. You need to know that the word bias means to show favoritism. A lot of our news channels, and not just TV channels, our newspapers, our magazines, our internet sites, they are biased. They show favoritism towards one side or the other. Next, you have to evaluate the source, look at where the information is coming from. Again, a lot of our media and things like that do show favoritism. So if you tend to get your news from the same site every time, there's a very good chance that that site is biased. And if you're using that site daily and you tend to agree with that site, you have to realize that you may or may not be getting both sides of the story. You may be getting some opinions that if you don't pay close enough attention to, you don't pick up on. So you have to evaluate the source and try to decide, is that source a good place for information? And typically you want to try to get your information from several different sources just to see if there is another side to the story or not. And then lastly, you have to identify propaganda. And then in parentheses, it defines what propaganda is. Propaganda is messages that are used to influence people's thinking. To better understand propaganda, you need to think of your TV commercials. Most commercials that we see on TV use some sort of propaganda. And again, we'll look at this more when we get into politics and we start talking about candidates running for office and the ads that they put on TV or the signs that they use or the billboards that they buy. A lot of those things show propaganda. Again, like I said, most of your TV commercials, regardless of what they're selling, use propaganda. If a commercial uses a celebrity, that's propaganda. They're trying to get you to buy that product because the celebrity uses that product. So the media will do that sometimes. They'll draw on celebrities or they'll draw on people's emotion to get them to support their side. Again, an example tying into the celebrity, maybe a news channel brings in a celebrity. They call a celebrity up to talk to that celebrity. Well, if you like that celebrity, you may agree with that person just because you like that celebrity. So next thing you know, that TV channel has influenced your thinking by using a celebrity to talk to. Again, like I said, a commercial that tries to sell you a product and uses a celebrity would be another example. That's propaganda, trying to influence what you think by using other messages. And like I said, we'll talk more about that when we get into politics. So these are all things that the media, our internet and TV and newspapers and things can do to try to influence laws. Okay, they'll try to draw on their viewers or their listeners or the people that look at their websites and try to get you on their side. And if you're on their side and you agree with them, the hope is that you will contact your leaders and try to persuade your leaders to make laws that support what the media supports. If the media channel is anti-gun, they're going to push anti-gun stuff on their media. And if you watch it enough, then you're going to believe it as well, and you'll contact your leaders and tell them you want guns banned. If they're in favor of guns, then the exact opposite. They'll get you to support their agenda. They'll try to persuade you to contact your leaders, let them know why we need to be allowed to own guns, and hopefully we get those laws as well. So a lot of times the media will draw on our attention. So again, we'll talk more about that when we get into SOL 5 a little bit more and start talking about politics. What we'll look at next in 9B is what can we as individuals do to impact the laws, and then what do interest groups do. A lot of SOL 9 is about impacting laws. We learned that the laws were made by the legislative branch, but we as people, our TV, our interest groups, they do play a role in the laws that we have. And that's all for SOL 9A.